So when I write classes, the code can look a little unstructured, perhaps even overwhelming. These are relatively simple classes. They aren't that long. But I guess after a while they can get cluttered. In this example here, I have 3 classes: the user class, the admin class, and the privileges class. And underneath each class you have methods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 methods or so. And I guess these classes can just go on and on to, hundreds of lines. And be hard to read and overwhelming and exhaustive. In order to make such files easier to read, I can restructure the classes and put classes of the same subject matter into their own respective files. And when I do that, those files are called modules. Here's an example of a module which consists of many different classes. This, presumably the random class, I haven't looked into it that much, but I know it's popular in Python. The random module, presumably that contains lots of different classes associated with randomization, randomness, and maybe probability, but I don't know, I haven't looked into that much. But here's an example of a module so this is what this line 1's saying to me is from the random module, import the random integer class or method or function. I'm going to say function because that's what Python Crash calls random integer. It calls it a function. It doesn't call it a method, it calls it a function. Methods and functions are the same thing in terms of the way they behave. So here I'm going to say that from the random module, import the random integer function. And what that's doing is that instead of writing so many different classes, I can just save all those classes into one module called random. And then when I open up a new file or a new program, I don't have to write all these classes again. So you have hundreds of lines of codes before you get to actually what you want to do, which is just to roll a 6-sided die. So this file here called die.py, it's only 17 lines of code, and that's because the bulk of the code has been saved inside a file called random, and that file is called a module, and it's called a module because the module contains lots of classes, and one of those classes contains the random integer function. So rather than write all that code, which might be 100 lines of code long, we can just save them in modules and input the functions that we want from those modules. For example, from the random module, import the random integer function. And here is where I finally use the function that I want. It's just down here. Now when I run this code, it just will print a random number as I'd rolled a 6-sided dice. So the point of this video is just to say that when classes become overwhelming, I can save them into modules of relevant subject matter, disseminated based on their subject matter, I guess, and can then import them from random module, for example, and import the functions and classes and methods from that module that I want to use for my specific program, which structures my code better and makes the code easier to read.